Would you please tell us when, if at all, will a new Reconquista begin in Europe? Tens of millions of migrants from Africa and the Middle East are already in our midst, destroying Europe. In Russia it's just the same. Brutes of all shapes and colors are coming in zillions, replacing the natives and spreading their religion. In a matter of 5 to 15 years, there'll be no whites at all. Is there any chance of another Reconquista to save both Europe and Russia? You once foretold that the Slavs, who now are fighting each other, will eventually form a forced alliance in order to defend Europe and their own lands. It wasn't a forecast, but my burning desire, my dream. It has been my position, my offer and my concept years before this Russia-Ukraine conflict has erupted. We mustn't fight each other. We, that is Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Poles and perhaps Hungarians, must form a military alliance and liberate Europe, Western Europe before all, from its current invasion, from our mutual enemies, Islamic terrorists, savage African aliens and the rest of them. We're in the same boat, because they are everywhere. The Crocus City Hall attack was carried out by Islamists from Tajikistan, guided by other Islamists from Afghanistan. Islamists have been slashing and bombing people in Paris, in Nice, in Stockholm, on the London Bridge, in the British countryside, in New York, where the Twin Towers once stood, everywhere. This is the problem we all share. Back to your question, when, if at all, will a new Reconquista begin? You see, the problem is, any problem can be solved, any gnawing or burning pain in the world, if you try it well. However, nobody lifts a finger these days. And who are these nobody? There are two sorts of them. First, leftist governments who have usurped power in Europe. Then, apart from leftists, we have the conformists, citizens of Europe who prefer to play ostrich. These are not the militant left, but merely chicken-hearted conformists. There would be a chance for a new Reconquista were the politicians willing to set it in motion. Centuries ago, it was the rulers who set it off. It was much easier to do so in the past, because back then people knew what chivalry and integrity are supposed to mean. And most of all, there were borders. On one side, there were Islamic invaders, while the other remained free. This is what made Reconquista possible. It was the government's decision. The central problem today is fundamentally emotional, juridical, psychological and socio-anthropological in nature. Not only have we let our enemies, savages and terrorists in, but we've also handed them passports and social housing. Now they're committing terror attacks while breeding new terrorists all the while. In France, a significant portion of terrorists behind massacres in the last decade were already second-generation French citizens. Hardly a surprise, given their families stick to traditions fostering terrorism. What else could they produce? I've been warning you, and I wasn't the only one. And there's another issue. Those leftists who've seized power in Europe, especially in England, France, Germany and Belgium, England being the worst one of all, they've officially proclaimed, in different terms, a state doctrine that practically grants sanction to the replacement of the white population. And what exactly does this terrible word replacement mean? Elimination. To replace is to eliminate. That's the great replacement. That's what they're doing day after day round the clock.
Замещение белого населения. И они это делают ежедневно и ежесекундно, это их программа.
Reconquista would be possible if Europeans summoned their own troops or called for international forces to intervene and save them. However, they won't do either. The idea was, my idea, mind you, that the right-minded European politicians, and every country in Europe does represent such characters, Italy, France, Belgium, these wonderful politicians do exist, would, being the most popular political leaders they are, make an official call to arms, asking foreign contingents, along with their native soldiers, from Eastern Europe, primarily from Russia, Ukraine and Belarus, to arrive in and save their lands from savage invaders. Of course, the moment they do so, leftists all over Europe will bawl their heads off, calling it political takeover and whatnot, even though they were the ones who usurped power years ago. Plus, we have this massive warfare raging on the continent, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I've done my best to prevent it. I've been clamoring against it on TV and writing posts asking one side to keep it cool and the other to refrain from provocations and insults and show some modesty since they don't have much bite. Alas, to no avail. Primates are, in the main, sick in the head. Some of them are sound and decent, of course, but most are mad with ambition, petty interest, and so on. That's why we're putting it off again and again. However, I see the light. No matter how long this bloodshed between Russia and Ukraine lasts, it'll cease at some point, leastways for the time being. The next surge of Islamists and savage aliens from Africa is gonna be ground-swelling. Besides, it'll mix together with the first one, which is formidable on its own. Carnage and terror will erupt with great ferocity. And there's a glimmer of hope. Hope against hope, but hope nonetheless, that those fighting each other will be compelled to band together and stand as one in the face of danger. Compelled is, alas, the key word in this scheme. They'll come to this decision not intellectually, but due to circumstances. Intellectual approach means acting ahead of time, and not at the last minute, in good advance, not at the last gasp. They will unite in the face of savages. I believe it is the most probable scenario, for it's simply bound to happen. So I gave you the reasons why Reconquista hasn't begun yet. The principal feature of the historic Reconquista was that in the past there existed that stalwart concept of state borders. It was clear back then what had been taken by enemies, but now it's all mixed up.